Alien Earth has landed on Hulu and has been doing incredibly well with critics, but more surprisingly, it's doing very well with its fan base, which is rare for a show that has been so open about disregarding canon, something that is usually a big no-no for any series with this big of a fan base, all while sidelining the titular character of the xenomorph, and instead, it focuses on its own ideas. And I'm sure Hollywood is like, what the hell? We tried new things for years and it just seems to piss the fan base off. But that's the thing, they didn't do exactly what Alien Earth is when it comes to doing something fresh and new, and when that didn't work out, these Hollywood studios instead leaned on nostalgia. When it comes to IP, Hollywood now heavily relies on nostalgia, repeating the same plot, relying on cameos and older actors from the original films. But Alien Earth chose not to do that and is succeeding in multiple ways. So why is that? Alien Earth is not just successful because it's doing its own thing or disregarding what came before it, but instead, they're executing their show in a very specific way that every single Hollywood studio needs to study. So I wanted to break down what exactly they're doing that pleases fans while being its own show. But before we get into all that, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I do deep dives on the film and TV industry and break down news and trends, so if you're into that, please subscribe. Thank you so much, but let's get into it. When Alien Earth was conceived, Noah Hawley stated that he did not want to recreate Alien or anything that has been done beforehand, but instead he wanted to generate the same feeling that he got from Alien when he saw it as a kid. And how did he do this? Well, he broke down certain themes and feelings he got from Alien and looked at them through today's world and gave them a fresh update, all while still giving us the same feeling of the original Alien movie. And he does this in multiple ways in the show, but he does this in a very important way with the character Boy Cavalier. A central plot of Alien and even Aliens is having a corporation care more about profit than its people. This mimics how things were going during the 70s and the 80s when the original Alien was released. The world was getting more anti-union and anti-worker, and the law started going more in favor of corporations rather than people in both the UK and the US, with the rise of Thatcherism in the UK, which reduced the power of trade unions, similar to that of Reaganomics in the 80s. In the US, the late 70s had rising inflation and rising unemployment and industrial decline, and that was blamed heavily on unions due to a heavy growth in business lobbying in American politics. People were starting to realize that corporations only truly cared about profit and did not care about them, and would even put them in harm's way to get a profit, and that was heavily reflected with Weyland-Yutani in Alien. Now, has anything about these corporations changed in today's world? Not really. It's all very obvious that corporations don't give a shit about its workers, but the landscape has changed, and Boy Cavalier showcases the best lesson that Hollywood can take by giving us the same feeling that we got from the original movie. Nowadays, corporations aren't just faceless logos. Billionaires and CEOs are now celebrities in their own right, and some of the public actually believe that they are geniuses. But most people realize that these are just greedy people who, while they are smart, they are not always right when it comes to absolutely everything, and that's what Boy Cavalier in Alien Earth accomplishes. Boy Cavalier is the CEO of the Prodigy Corporation and is the genius behind the hybrids in Alien Earth, perfecting the process of transferring human consciousness into synthetic bodies. That is something that actual CEOs and the rich are trying to accomplish right now in the real world. They've achieved everything they want to in this world, but they're still grappling with their own mortality. Cavalier sports the same traits of the modern-day CEO, believing he is the smartest man in the room no matter where he goes, having weird tics like always being barefoot, and believing that he has enough power to become a god. Instead of Weyland-Yutani as the bad guy again, Alien Earth updated the corporation to a genius billionaire with Boy Cavalier, not delivering us the same thing that we've been given before, but instead delivering us something that's different that we can all relate to now, all while still having the same feeling of the original film. And it's not just with Boy Cavalier that Alien Earth does this, but also by sidelining the titular character of the xenomorph, which should be a big no-no. It is titled Alien and the alien is not really in it, but it still works. Noah Hawley stated that no matter what he did with the xenomorph, it would never give the audience the same feeling as the original Alien or Aliens, because they've already experienced it, and he can't make them as scared as they were back in 1979 with a creature they've already seen so many times before. So to do that, he had to sideline it and create new aliens that creep people out, get them scared, and demonstrate a new sense of danger, and to do that, he did have to sideline the xenomorph, which does not have that much screen time, and instead he gave that time to the other aliens like Species 64, or the leeches that draw out all your blood, or the ticks in episode 5. By doing this, he gave the audience something new, but still gave them the exact same feeling of the original, and that is exactly what Hollywood needs to learn. Too often, they don't care about feeling and rely too much on repeating the same plot, or bringing back in old characters to make people happy, thinking that will give them the same feeling and enjoyment that they had when they saw the original. But that largely fails or is usually short-lived, as we've seen with Star Wars or Terminator, where Alien Earth will probably keep people talking for years to come because it's fresh, but it still draws the same feeling. And even if you wanted nostalgia, they do deliver on that as well, but still in a unique way. Episode 5 was largely nostalgia bait with basically the same story as the original. Everything down to the production design was the exact same. It was great, but it was the exact same, but they did things just a little bit different to make sure that they drew in different feelings. Noah Hawley, when he set out to make Alien Earth, did not originally include Episode 5 in his plan for the season. Episode 1 was filmed entirely, and then later on, he realized that this is an alien series and it should include some type of plotline of an alien being on a ship to please the audience members. And then he went and wrote Episode 5 and reshot parts of Episode 1. But instead of repeating the exact same plot of Alien, which is exactly what Alien Romulus did, and I say this as someone who loved Alien Romulus, they focused largely on the crew and their tragicness of their characters, fleshing out the character of Morrow and his backstory and the new aliens they already set up, rather than entirely focusing on the xenomorph and having the characters do the exact same thing that they already did in the original film. Same feeling, but different story. That's what Hollywood really needs to learn if they want to keep mining out all of this old IP. And to do this, you may need to disregard some of what came before, even if it might piss some people off. The saying goes, in order to make an omelet, you need to break a few eggs, and Alien Earth breaks a few eggs by straight up ignoring prequels that Ridley Scott created, like with Prometheus and Alien Covenant, so that it could create its own story. Even parts of Alien and Aliens this show kind of ignores too. There's zero mention of any type of alien invasion or the xenomorph in Alien, even though the show takes place before the film, and Aliens doesn't mention this either, even though that would be pretty important information for the Space Marines to have. Alien Earth decided to ignore canon to forge their own path, and usually this is a pretty big no-no. Fans largely throw a fit if you decide to ignore what came before it, stating that you are being disrespectful to the canon, and yet that is not happening with Alien Earth. They are respecting where they came from with this show, but they're also being very careful about what they should be throwing out in order to deliver something new and something fresh. Now, is this something completely new? Not inherently. There are many films that openly state that they are going to ignore the later films, like with Jurassic World and with Terminator, but that's wiping a slate clean in order to forge ahead, where Alien Earth is being very careful about what they're wiping clean, as they are technically still a prequel. As these franchises continue, and let's be honest, in today's Hollywood, they're not going to stop mining IP. But if they're going to continue, they need to understand that canon, as great as it can put unnecessary restraints on forging new stories. They would not be able to set this story on Earth as a prequel if they were so heavily tied to making sure that they don't disrupt the canon. But by throwing out certain parts of it, this allowed Noah Hawley and the writing team to create something truly great and unique while still working within the constraints of the IP. Now, you could definitely argue that if the show wasn't as good as it was, then people would be blaming that it's because they were disrespecting the show or disregarding the canon, and that's why it failed. And sure, you can, but that's a very loose argument. Canon can be helpful and it can be used as a creative tool, but there's no denying that it does put a creative restraint on you if you don't know how to navigate it well. But Noah Hawley fortunately does know how to do this. Noah did an amazing job adapting Fargo, which was a film before it was a TV show, and adapting Legion, which was an X-Men character. He knew how to produce a feeling that would mimic the original IP, and he knew when he should or should not take a creative leap, even though those creative leaps may create backlash, and that is what Hollywood should really learn from this show. Understand the feelings that the originals gave you when they first came out, instead of just rehashing what worked before, because that will not generate the same feelings that you had. Knowing when and when not to take a creative leap. If they can simply learn from Alien Earth, then so many future shows and movies can continue to still rely on IP, while still feeling fresh. But that also means that fans need to be open about certain things changing in order to get something that makes them feel the same way when they watch the original film. But that is another video altogether. Have you checked out Alien Earth yet? What are your thoughts so far, and is there anything else that you can think of that Hollywood should learn from the show, or are there other ways that Alien Earth demonstrates the same feeling of the original film that I missed? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, please be sure to like it, as it does help push the video out into the algorithm and find more people like yourself. And once again, please do subscribe. If you do, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.